The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was very large. It was built inside a space station that floated between 3 different star systems. The walls were made of a strange metal that changed colors when light touched it. Right now, the metal showed dark, purple, and silver. This meant the council was in a serious mood. Kang Taeho walked into the hall with slow and careful steps. He was a tall man with short black hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple dark uniform with a small Earth symbol on his chest. Behind him walked Lieutenant Park Yuna. She was younger than him, with her hair tied back in a tight bun. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes moved quickly around the room. The council chamber had seats arranged in a half circle. Each seat was raised high above the floor, so the council members could look down at anyone who stood before them. There were 12 seats, and 11 of them were filled with aliens from different species. Taeho had studied all of them before coming here. He knew their names, their worlds, and their histories. But knowing facts was different from standing in front of them. The Drayan delegate sat in the center seat. His name was Velrix, and he was the most powerful voice on the council. The Drayan people were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. They had fought a great war 500 years ago against another species called the Morath. The war lasted for 60 years, and the Drayan won. Since then, they believed they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Velrix looked down at Taeho with cold yellow eyes. His mouth was a thin line that never smiled. "Human delegate," Velrix said. His voice was deep and filled the whole chamber. "You have asked to join the Galactic Alliance. You want your species to have a seat at this table. You want the protection of our fleets and the benefits of our trade routes." Taeho nodded. "That is correct, honored council member. But what do you offer in return?" Velrix asked. He leaned forward in his seat. "What makes humanity worthy of standing beside species that have proven themselves in battle?" A delegate from the Virath species made a sound like laughing. The Virath were short and round, covered in thick blue fur. They had joined the Alliance 200 years ago after their world was attacked by space pirates. They had fought back and won, earning their seat through blood. "The humans are young," the Virath delegate said. Her name was Bora, and her voice was high and squeaky. "Their space travel is only a few hundred years old. What do they know of real war?" Yuna's hands tightened into fists at her sides, but she said nothing. Taeho had told her before they came that she must stay silent, no matter what the aliens said. Another delegate spoke up. This one was from the Kellan species. They were thin creatures with skin like tree bark and eyes that glowed soft green. The Kellan were peaceful now, but they had once fought a civil war that lasted for 3 generations. "Perhaps we judge too quickly," the Kellan delegate said. His name was Torin, and his voice sounded like wind through leaves. "The humans have shown great progress. Their technology grows fast." Velrix waved one of his 4 hands in dismissal. "Technology can be bought or stolen. What matters is the spirit of a species. Do they have the strength to stand and fight when everything seems lost? Do they have the will to sacrifice for something greater than themselves?" Taeho listened carefully. He understood what was happening. This was not really about whether humanity was useful to the Alliance. This was about respect. The aliens did not respect humans because they had not seen humans fight. "Honored Council," Taeho said. His voice was calm and clear. "I understand your concerns. You have all earned your places here through great sacrifice. The Drayan fought the Morath. The Virath defended their home against raiders. The Kellan survived their own civil war. Each of you has paid a price in blood." Velrix nodded slowly. "Yes. And what price has humanity paid? You found space travel. You built ships. You explored. But have you ever truly been tested?" Bora laughed again. "They probably think a hard test is when their computer breaks down." Some of the other delegates made sounds of amusement. Taeho did not react to the insult. He had heard worse things in his life. "You seem very sure that humanity has not been tested," Taeho said. "May I ask why?" Velrix spread all 4 of his arms wide. Because we have watched your species for some time, human. You do not fight. Your ships carry no heavy weapons. Your stations have no battle shields. When we look at humanity, we see a species that has known only peace. Yuna could not stay silent anymore. With respect, honored council member. That is not. Lieutenant, Tejo said quietly. His voice was gentle but firm. Yuna closed her mouth and stepped back. Velrix looked at Yuna with interest. Your young officer seems to disagree with my words. Perhaps she wishes to speak? She is young and proud, Tejo said, as all young soldiers are. But she knows her place. Soldiers? Velrix repeated the word, like it tasted strange. You call yourselves soldiers? What enemy have you ever faced? What battle have you ever won? This was the moment Tejo had been waiting for. He knew they would ask this question. They always did. Every species that met humanity asked the same thing. Where are your scars? Where is your proof? The honored council wants to see proof of our battles, Tejo said. Is that correct? Velrix smiled for the first time. It was not a kind smile. Yes, human. We want proof. Show us your battle scars. Show us that your species knows what it means to fight and bleed and survive. The chamber fell quiet. All the delegates watched Tejo, waiting to see what he would do. They expected him to talk about human history. They expected speeches and stories. They expected him to fail. Tejo looked at Yuna. She gave him a small nod. They had prepared for this moment together. Very well, Tejo said. He reached for the buttons on his uniform jacket. If the council wishes to see battle scars, then I will show them. The delegates leaned forward in their seats. They did not know what was about to happen. They thought they were calling a bluff. They thought they would see smooth skin and hear weak excuses. They were wrong. Velrix made a sharp sound that passed for laughter among the Draen. The sound echoed through the great chamber. And soon other delegates joined in. Bora the Virath slapped her small hands together in amusement. Even Torin the Kellen seemed to smile, though it was hard to tell with his bark-like face. You will show us your scars? Velrix asked. His yellow eyes were bright with mockery. Please. Human delegate. Proceed. We are all very curious to see what marks your peaceful species carries. Tejo did not react to the laughter. He had expected it. Humans had faced worse than alien mockery. Much worse. He began to unbutton his uniform jacket slowly. His movements were calm and deliberate. There was no anger in his face. No shame. No fear. He moved like a man who had done this before, like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Yuna stood behind him with her hands clasped behind her back. Her jaw was tight. She knew what was under that uniform. She had seen it before, during a medical emergency on their ship 2 years ago. The memory still made her stomach turn. The other delegates watched with amusement. A delegate from the Moran species whispered something to his neighbor. The Moran were large creatures with thick scales and wide mouths. They had been enemies of the Draen long ago, but now they were allies. They had earned their seat through the same war, just on the losing side. Even losers could be respected if they fought well. Perhaps the human has a paper cut, the Moran delegate said loudly. Or maybe he burned his finger cooking food. More laughter filled the chamber. Velrix raised one of his 4 hands to quiet the room, but he was still smiling. Let the human speak, Velrix said. Let him show us what he believes are battle scars. Tejo removed his jacket and handed it to Yuna. She took it without a word. Underneath the jacket, he wore a simple gray undershirt. The fabric was thin. Even from a distance, some of the delegates could see that something was not right. The fabric did not lay flat against his skin. There were bumps and ridges underneath. The laughter began to fade. Tejo reached down and grabbed the bottom of his undershirt. He paused for just a moment. Then he lifted the shirt up over his head and stood bare from the waist up. The chamber went completely silent. Velrix's smile disappeared. His yellow eyes went wide. For the first time since Teho had entered the chamber, the great Drayan warrior had nothing to say. Teho's body was covered in scars. Not one scar. Not two. Dozens of them. They crossed his chest and stomach in every direction. Some were thin white lines that had healed long ago. Others were thick and raised, pink and angry, even after years of healing. There were round scars that looked like something had punched through his flesh. There were long scars that looked like something had tried to cut him in half. His left side had a massive burn scar that stretched from his hip to his ribs. The skin there was twisted and discolored, melted by heat that should have killed him. His right shoulder had a deep gouge where muscle had been torn away and never fully grown back, and those were just the ones they could see from the front. Bora the Virath made a small sound of shock. Her blue fur stood up on end, which was a sign of fear among her species. She had seen battle scars before. She carried some herself from the pirate raids on her world. But she had never seen anything like this. What? Velric started to speak, then stopped. He tried again. What happened to you? Teho looked down at his own body as if seeing the scars for the first time. Then he looked back up at the council with calm eyes. Which scar are you asking about? He said. Velrix blinked. What? I asked which scar you want to know about, Teho repeated. This one? He pointed to the burn on his left side. Or this one? He touched the hole in his shoulder. Or perhaps this one? His finger traced a long cut across his stomach. They are all from the same battle, yes? Velrix asked. His voice was uncertain now. He sounded like he was hoping for a certain answer. Teho shook his head slowly. No. They are from different battles. Different wars. Different years. The silence in the chamber became heavier. The word hung in the air like smoke. Different wars? Torin the Kellan spoke up. His voice was barely above a whisper. How many wars has humanity fought? One. Teho did not answer right away. Instead, he turned around so the council could see his back. If his front was bad, his back was worse. Long scars crossed from shoulder to hip. There were more burn marks, more puncture wounds, more evidence of violence that should have killed any reasonable creature. His spine was visible through thin skin in some places where the muscles had been damaged and never fully recovered. Bora looked away. She could not watch anymore. Velric stood up from his seat. This was a sign of great emotion for a Drayan. They only stood when something truly shocked them. He walked down from his high platform and approached Teho slowly. Human, Velric said. His voice was quiet now. Answer the Kellan's question. How many wars has your species fought? Teho turned back around to face Velrix. They were almost the same height, though Velrix was thinner with his 4 arms hanging at his sides. In the last 500 years alone? Teho asked. Velrix nodded. We stopped counting after the first few hundred, Teho said. There have been too many to track. Velrix took a step back. His gray face had become pale, which was a sign of distress among his species. That is not possible, Velric said. We watched your species. We saw no great enemy. We saw no invading force. Who were you fighting? Teho met the alien's eyes without looking away. His voice was steady when he answered. Each other. The words fell into the chamber like stones dropping into deep water. The delegates looked at each other in confusion and growing horror. They did not understand. How could they understand? Their species had fought one great war. Maybe 2. They had faced external enemies and bonded together against them. That was how civilizations were supposed to work. You fought your own kind? Bora asked. Her voice was shaking. Yes, Teho said simply. Many times. For many reasons. For land, for resources, for beliefs, for power. Sometimes for no reason at all that made sense. He began to point at his scars again, one by one. This burn came from a conflict in the eastern regions of our largest continent. This cut came from a war between 2 nations that had been allies the year before. This hole in my shoulder came from peacekeeping mission where the peace did not last. He touched scar after scar, naming conflicts that meant nothing to the aliens but everything to him. Velrix returned to his seat slowly. He moved like a creature that had seen something it could not explain. His 4 hands gripped the arms of his chair tightly. The Drayan fought one great war, Velrix said quietly. It lasted 60 years. We lost millions of our people. We thought that was the worst thing that could happen to a species. He looked at Tejo with new eyes. Not mockery anymore. Something else. Something that might have been fear. What kind of species fights itself for hundreds of years and survives? Tejo pulled his undershirt back on slowly. The thin gray fabric covered his scars, but everyone in the chamber could still see them in their minds. Some of the delegates looked away when he moved, as if they were ashamed to have asked for this display. Yuna handed him his uniform jacket. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were wet. She had known what was under his shirt, but hearing him explain each scar in that calm voice was different. It made the pain real. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Tejo said quietly. He put the jacket on and buttoned it up with practiced fingers. Velrix had not spoken since his last question. The great Drayan warrior sat in his high seat and stared at the human below him. His yellow eyes were troubled, and his 4 hands kept moving restlessly. It was Torin the Kellon who broke the silence. "Human delegate," Torin said. His voice was gentle, like wind through grass. "You said these scars came from different wars. Please, help us understand. How can one person carry wounds from so many conflicts?" Tejo nodded. This was a fair question. "I am 53 years old by human counting," Tejo said. "I joined our military when I was 18. In the 35 years since then, I have served in 11 different conflicts across 4 continents and 2 off-world locations." Bora made a choking sound. 11 conflicts in 35 years? "I am not unusual," Tejo continued. "Many human soldiers serve in fewer. Some serve in more. Our wars are not like your war, Honored Council. Your great conflicts last for decades and then end. Our wars are shorter, but there are always more of them. But why?" Velrix finally spoke again. His voice was rough. "Why do you fight so much? What drives your species to such endless violence?" Tejo considered the question carefully. He had thought about this many times over the years. Why did humans fight? It was a question without a simple answer. "We are a divided species," Tejo said. "We always have been. We come from one world, but that world has many different lands separated by water and mountains. We grew up apart from each other. We developed different languages, different beliefs, different ways of living, and when different groups of humans meet, we often fight. That is madness," a delegate from the Siron species said. The Siron were thin and tall, with silver skin that reflected light. They had achieved unity on their world thousands of years ago. The idea of fighting their own kind was alien to them. You share the same blood, the same home. How can you raise weapons against your own brothers and sisters? Tejo looked at the Siron delegate calmly. Do the Siron never disagree? Do you never argue about how things should be done? Of course we argue, the Siron said. But we settle our differences through discussion and compromise. We do not kill each other over words. 2. Neither do most humans, Tejo said. Most of our people live their whole lives without fighting anyone. They work, they love, they raise families. They grow old in peace. But there are always some who want more. More land, more power, more control over others. And those few can drag millions into war. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the different faces watching him. Your species are not so different, Tejo said. The Drayan fought the Moroth for 60 years. The Viroth fought pirates for a generation. The Kellan had a civil war that lasted 3 times as long as any human conflict. You understand violence. You understand war. The only difference is that humans have never stopped long enough to forget what war feels like. Velrix leaned forward in his seat. But you have space travel now. You have reached the stars. Surely that changed things. Surely facing the vastness of the universe Made you stop fighting each other? Taeho's face showed something that might have been sadness. No, he said. It did not. What do you mean? Velrix asked. Humans took our wars into space, Taeho said. We built colonies on other worlds. And then we fought over those colonies. We found resources in asteroid fields. And then we fought over who owned them. We are a species that carries its conflicts wherever it goes. Yuna spoke up for the first time. Her voice was tight with emotion. But that is not all we carry, she said. Everyone looked at her. Taeho did not stop her this time. He nodded for her to continue. Yuna stepped forward. She was younger than Taeho, with fewer years and fewer scars. But she had her own stories to tell. Humans also carry hope, she said. After every war, we rebuild. After every destruction, we create something new. We bury our dead, and then we plant gardens over their graves. We are not just creatures of violence. We are creatures of stubborn, foolish hope. Torin the Kellen made a sound of interest. Tell us more, young human. Yuna looked at Taeho. He gave her a small nod of permission. My grandfather fought in a great war, Yuna said. His city was destroyed by fire from the sky. Thousands of people died in a single moment. He survived because he was outside the city that day, visiting family in the countryside. The chamber was silent. Even Velrix seemed interested. After the war ended, my grandfather went back to that destroyed city, Yuna continued. There was nothing left but ash and bones. Most people would have walked away. Most people would have found somewhere else to live. But my grandfather was human. What did he do? Bora asked. He started cleaning, Yuna said. He picked up one piece of broken stone at a time. He cleared one small patch of ground. Then another. Then another. Other survivors joined him. They worked for years, cleaning and clearing and preparing. She smiled, and there were tears on her cheeks now. Today, that city has 3 million people living in it. They built it back from nothing. From ash and death, they created life again. That is also what humans do. Velrix was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice that had lost all its earlier mockery. You are a strange species, he said. You destroy yourselves. And then you rebuild. You kill each other. And then you heal each other. You carry scars from 100 wars. And you still find reasons to hope. Yes, Taeho said. That is exactly what we are. Taeho. It makes no sense, Velrix said. No, Taeho agreed. It does not. But it is the truth. The Drayan warrior looked at Taeho's covered chest, remembering the scars hidden beneath the uniform. Those wounds should have killed you, Velrix said. Any one of them would have killed a Drayan. How did you survive? Taeho touched his left side, where the great burn scar twisted his skin. Because dying was not permitted, he said. I had people depending on me. Soldiers who needed their commander. A family who needed their father. I did not survive because I was strong. I survived because giving up was not an option. Velrix sat back in his seat. His face showed something new. Not fear. Not disgust. Something closer to respect. You have given us much to consider, human delegate, Velrix said. The council chamber remained quiet for several minutes. The delegates whispered to each other in their own languages, their translators working hard to keep up with the rushed conversations. Some of them looked disturbed. Others looked curious. A few looked at Taeho with something that might have been wonder. Velrix raised one of his 4 hands, and the whispers stopped immediately. Human delegate, Velrix said. I would ask you more questions, if you are willing to answer them. Taeho nodded. I will answer what I can. These wars you spoke of, Velrix said slowly, as if he was having trouble accepting his own words. You said there have been hundreds in just 500 years. Tell us about some of them. Help us understand the scope of what you are describing. Taeho took a deep breath. This was the part he had been preparing for. Not just showing his scars, but explaining what they meant. Helping these aliens understand the long, bloody history of humanity. Where should I begin? Taeho asked. Should I tell you about the war that killed 60 million people in just 6 years? Or the one that killed 20 million in 4 years, just 30 years before that one? Should I tell you about the wars fought over religion, where people killed each other because they worshipped the same god in slightly different ways? Bora made a sound of disbelief. The same god? They fought over different ways of worshipping the same god? Yes, Tejo said. Those wars lasted for centuries in some regions. Entire generations were born, lived, and died, without ever knowing peace. Children grew up learning to hate their neighbors because of small differences in belief that meant nothing to anyone except those who wanted power. That is, Bora struggled to find the right word. That is tragic. It is human, Tejo said simply. We have also fought wars over skin color, over where people were born, over which language they spoke. We have found 1,000 different ways to divide ourselves, and 1,000 reasons to kill each other over those divisions. Torin the Kellon spoke up. Your species sounds like a disease. You spread destruction wherever you go. Why would the Alliance want such a species as members? It was Yuna who answered this time. She stepped forward with fire in her eyes. Because we also spread healing, she said. For every war we fight, we create 10 hospitals. For every city we destroy, we build 20 more. For every life we take, we save 100 others through medicine and science and simple kindness. The young human speaks with passion, the Siran delegate observed. But passion is not proof. Then let me give you proof, Yuna said. She turned to face the whole council. Humanity created vaccines that saved millions of children from diseases that once killed without mercy. We developed surgical techniques that can rebuild shattered bodies. We built machines that can replace failing hearts and damaged lungs. We have learned to fight death itself, not just each other. Tejo watched his young aide with pride. She was saying things he could not say himself without sounding boastful. But from her lips, the words sounded like simple truth. The same species that invented weapons to destroy cities also invented medicines to save lives, Yuna continued. The same hands that built machines of war also built machines of healing. That is who we are. We are not one thing or another. We are everything at once. Velrix raised 2 of his hands in a gesture that meant he wanted to speak. I begin to understand something, Velrix said. Your species is not peaceful or warlike. You are both. You carry the capacity for terrible destruction and great creation in equal measure. Yes, Tejo said. That is a good way to describe us. But what decides which side you show? Velrix asked. When humans meet new species among the stars, how do you choose? Do you offer friendship or war? This was the question Tejo had been waiting for. The question that would determine whether humanity joined the Alliance or was rejected forever. We offer both, Tejo said. We extend our hand in friendship first. We offer trade, cooperation, sharing of knowledge. We want to learn from other species and teach what we know in return. And if your friendship is rejected? Velrix asked. Tejo's face became hard. Then we show the other side. The side that has been sharpened by 100 wars. The side that has learned to fight against impossible odds and survive. We do not want war with anyone. But if war is forced upon us, we will not lose. The chamber was very quiet. The delegates looked at Tejo and saw something new. Not a representative of a weak young species. Not a soft creature from a peaceful world. They saw a survivor. A warrior from a species of warriors who had spent thousands of years fighting the most dangerous enemy of all. Themselves. You have answered my question about which side you would show, Velrix said, but you have not answered the more important question. Can humanity be trusted? You say you want peace, but your history is full of broken promises and betrayed allies. How can we know you will keep your word to us? Tejo had expected this question too. It was the hardest one to answer. You cannot know for certain, Tejo admitted. Humans have betrayed each other many times. We have broken treaties and violated agreements and turned on former friends. I will not lie to you and say, We are perfect. Then why should we trust you? The Moran delegate demanded. Because we have also kept our word many times, Tejo said. We have alliances on Earth that have lasted for centuries. We have friendships between nations that have survived wars and disasters and changes of government. Humans are capable of great loyalty when we choose to give it. He looked at Yuna standing beside him. My father served with a soldier named Cho Dong-hae, Tejo said. They fought together in 3 different conflicts over 20 years. In the last battle, my father was wounded badly. He could not walk, could not fight, could barely breathe. Dong-hae carried him for 12 kilometers through enemy territory to reach safety. It took 2 days. When they finally arrived at the medical station, Dong-hae collapsed from exhaustion. He had not slept in 60 hours. He had not eaten in 40. Why would he do that? Bora asked softly. Because my father was his friend, Tejo said simply. Because Dong-hae had made a promise, and he would rather die than break it. That is also what humans do. We can be treacherous and cruel, but we can also be loyal beyond reason. We can love with the same intensity that we hate. Velrix was quiet for a long time. His 4 hands were still, which was unusual for a Drayan. They were normally always moving, always gesturing. Stillness meant deep thought. You have given us much to consider, human delegate, Velrix finally said. The council must discuss what we have learned today. We will call for you when we have reached a decision. 7. By Velrix 5, we will call for you reached. Tejo bowed his head slightly. I thank the council for its time and patience. He turned and walked toward the exit, with Yuna falling into step beside him. As they reached the great doors of the chamber, Velrix spoke one more time. Human. Velrix called out. Tejo stopped and turned back. The soldier who carried your father, Velrix said. Cho Dong-hae. What happened to him? Tejo smiled, and for the first time, there was warmth in his expression. He became my godfather, Tejo said. He helped raise me after my father died 3 years later. He taught me how to fight and how to survive. And he taught me that scars are not something to hide. They are proof that you survived when others would have fallen. Velrix nodded slowly. Something had changed in his yellow eyes. Something that looked almost like respect. Go and rest, human, Velrix said. The council has much to discuss. Tejo and Yuna waited in the small room they had been given on the space station. It was a simple space with 2 chairs, a small table, and a window that looked out at the stars. The room was meant for visiting delegates who were not important enough to deserve better quarters. Yuna sat by the window, watching distant lights move across the darkness. Ships from 100 different worlds passed through this space every day. Trade vessels, diplomatic carriers, military scouts. The galaxy was full of life, and humanity wanted to be part of it. Do you think they will accept us? Yuna asked without turning from the window. Tejo was sitting in one of the chairs with his eyes closed. He opened them slowly and looked at her back. I do not know, he said honestly. We showed them the truth. Now they must decide what to do with it. Some of them looked afraid, Yuna said. When you showed them your scars, I saw fear in their eyes. Fear is natural, Tejo said. We told them that humanity has been fighting itself for thousands of years and has not been destroyed. That is a frightening thing for species who nearly died from a single great war. Yuna finally turned from the window. Her young face was troubled. Do you think we are monsters? She asked. The way they looked at us, like we were something dangerous and broken. Tejo stood up and walked over to stand beside her at the window. We are what we are, he said. We have done terrible things. We have also done wonderful things. Every species in this galaxy has blood on their hands. The difference is that we have not forgotten our violence. We carry it with us, written on our skin. They stood in silence for a while, watching the ships pass by outside. 3 hours later, a message came. The council had reached a decision. Tejo and Yuna were summoned back to the Great Chamber. When they entered, the atmosphere was different. The delegates were not whispering among themselves. They were not looking at Tejo with mockery or curiosity. They were looking at him with serious faces and still bodies. Velric stood in front of his high seat. This was unusual. Council members only stood when making important announcements. Taeho felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. Human Delegate Kang Taeho, Velric said in his deep voice. Lieutenant Park Yuna, thank you for returning. Thank you for calling us, honored council, Taeho replied. Velric gestured to the other delegates with 2 of his 4 hands. The council has discussed your request for many hours, Velric said. We have debated the merits of accepting humanity into the Galactic Alliance. We have considered the risks and the benefits. We have argued among ourselves, as councils always do. He paused, and Taeho held his breath. When you first entered this chamber, I thought you were representing a weak species, Velric continued. A young species that had known only peace and plenty. I expected to send you away with kind words and empty promises. I did not expect what you showed us. Velric walked down from his platform until he was standing directly in front of Taeho. They were almost the same height. The great Drayan warrior looked into the human's tired eyes. You showed us a species that has been at war with itself since before the Drayan learned to make fire, Velric said. A species that has killed millions of its own kind and then rebuilt from the ashes. A species that carries scars from 100 conflicts and still finds reasons to hope. Taeho said nothing. He waited. Some of my fellow council members believe this makes humanity too dangerous to accept, Velric said. They worry that a species capable of such violence against its own kind might turn that violence against the Alliance someday. Bora the Virath spoke up from her seat. I am one of those who worried. But I have changed my mind. Taeho looked at the small, furry delegate with surprise. When the pirates attacked my world, we fought back, Bora said. We learned to be violent because we had no choice. But when the fighting was over, we tried to forget. We put away our weapons and pretended we had always been peaceful. She climbed down from her seat and walked toward Taeho. Her small feet made soft sounds on the floor. Humans do not pretend, Bora continued. You carry your scars openly. You remember your wars and learn from them. You do not hide from what you are. That is not a weakness, that is strength. Torin the Kellon stood as well. His bark-like face was hard to read, but his glowing green eyes seemed warm. The Kellon fought a civil war that lasted generations, Torin said. We are ashamed of it. We never speak of it. We act as if it never happened. But hearing the humans speak of his wars made me realize that our shame does not serve us. We should remember our mistakes so we do not repeat them. One by one, other delegates rose from their seats. The Moran with their thick scales. The Siron with their silver skin. Even species Taeho did not recognize stepped forward. Velric raised his 4 arms for silence. The council has voted, Velric announced. The decision was not easy. But in the end, we agreed on one thing. He placed one of his hands on Taeho's shoulder. The touch was gentle. Despite the Drayan's reputation as a warrior, humanity has earned a place at this table, Velric said. Not despite your violent history, but because of it. You have shown us what it means to survive. You have shown us that hope can exist alongside horror. You have proven that scars are not marks of shame, but badges of endurance. Taeho felt something loosen in his chest. He had not realized how tightly he had been holding himself until this moment. Thank you, honored council, he said. His voice was rough. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity. Do not thank us yet. Velric said with something that might have been a smile. Membership in the Alliance comes with responsibilities. You will be expected to contribute ships and soldiers to our common defense. You will be expected to share your resources and knowledge. You will be expected to stand beside us when danger threatens. We understand, Taeho said, and we accept. Yuna stepped forward. There were tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. What made you change your minds? She asked Velric. You seemed so certain that we were not worthy. Velric looked at the young human lieutenant for a long moment. Your delegate showed me his scars and asked which war I wanted to know about, Velric said. In that moment, I realized something important. The Drayan have fought one great war. We wear our scars from that conflict with pride. But we have only one story to tell. He gestured at Tejo. This human has 100 stories. 1,000. Each scar is a different battle. A different survival. A different lesson learned. His body is a library of war and healing and endurance. When I asked what kind of species fights itself for hundreds of years and survives, I did not expect an answer, but now I know. What answer is that? Yuna asked. Velrix looked at Tejo with respect that had not existed before. The kind of species that never gives up, Velrix said. The kind that falls down and stands back up. The kind that buries its dead and then plants gardens. The kind that the galaxy needs as allies, not enemies. Tejo bowed his head. We will try to be worthy of that trust. You already are, Velrix said. Welcome to the Galactic Alliance, humanity. May your scars continue to tell stories of survival. Tejo straightened and looked around the chamber at all the different species watching him. Some had once laughed at humanity. Now they stood in silence, offering respect to a species they had underestimated. He touched his chest where his scars lay hidden beneath his uniform. Each one told a story of pain and survival. Each one was proof that humans did not know how to quit. The galaxy would learn that lesson soon enough. Humanity was no longer alone among the stars. And the universe would never be the same.